Satya Dharma Reflection on June 25th, 2022. Open up widely. This is dwelling within the composing mind. Widen out. Don't project the mind forward. It's not okay. That is always offsided.
สำเนียงมันถูกไหม offside
ค่ะ ใช่ค่ะ
offside
ค่ะ
ใช้ได้หมด
ใช้ได้ค่ะ
ชอบ offside ตลอดไม่ดิ
Disregard.
ไม่ลูกไม่เองเลย
The disregard is not itself. This will be the brightening that purifies right away. This is not to use something to project onwards, forward, because that is the clashes. Is something that hurt and harm towards one another, aiming towards one another. There is only just clashing. There is just the one that hurt and harm. All this projecting mind towards one another. That's why it's hurting and harming. Disregard itself from itself. Give no significance to the disregard itself. The disregard is not itself. Well with it. This is not about dwelling within oneself. No, it's not no itself. Let's purify the projecting mind that creates clashing, or that maintaining of the mind. This is to purify the samudaya, the causes of suffering and the suffering. Give no significance to the non-attachment itself. This is end all the root, all the origin. Cut through the cutting itself. Cut through the origin. The origin of the attempt to begin. Disregard, even from the disregard itself. Give no significance to the disregard itself. This will cease the attempt to begin. That is the origin of the samudaya. To be obsessed, to use the mind in this way and that way, attempting to begin or to end so many moments of arising. This is the samudaya, this is the origin, the cause. Without disregarding, there is no ceasing the attempt to begin at all. The attempt to begin or to end. And to be limited with just disregarding is not okay, because samsara is still existing. Disregard from the disregard itself is the great compassion that is shared internally and externally simultaneously, helping through ending altogether.
ไม่แม้กระทั่งไม่เองมันจะยุบ
Non-attached to the non-attachment itself, it will give ending to the origin of the attempt to begin, the origin of the clashing will be
ไม่ใช่
ceasing.
เองเลยมันจะยุบ
Disregard from the disregard itself, it will give ending to the circling within the mind. Widen out. Without widening out, it's impossible to release the mind. The non-attachment has no meaning in itself, so give no significance to it. Even the non-attachment has no significance to itself. So just diligently share the essence of the cutting deluded knowing. Give no significance to the disregard itself. Therefore, it's not about the internal or the external, because the disregard is not about anything. The non-attachment doesn't signify itself. Therefore, neither is about the internal or the external simultaneously. This is not about the attempt to begin or to end. It's not about attempting to attach or detach, ending within no time. My or disregard or the non-attachment doesn't signify itself. So well to conclude with this essence. Let's form up to remind with this essence, otherwise there will be a big gap. The delusion will create an obstacle towards the essence of the enlightenment. The laziness to make a conclusion will do that. There is only just being carried away, sinking, that is being obscured. That is the desire that is straying here and there, always giving significance and meanings and involvement. This is straying. Therefore, just my disregard from itself, give no significance to the disregard itself. a part of
มันไม่ใช่มันก็ทั้งไม่เอง
there is not about meaning. No is not even no itself.
ใช่แม้กระทั่งตัวไม่ใช่เอง
No is not no itself. Let's end it. Let's make a conclusion through ending for samsara.
ที่สรุปตลอดเลยอะรู้สติล้างตลอดรู้สติ
Always using the reminder as helping through ending at all times. This is not to be only use it occasionally.
จนมันไม่ใช่มันก็ทั้งไม่ใช่
Until
ตลอด
no is not no itself is always there at all times. Until disregard from the disregard itself is at all time. This will be sufficient to help ending for samsara because samsara is always there. Why not make a conclusion at all times with the essence?
ปล่อยไว้ทำอะไร
Why we leaving samsara for
เป็นช่วง
what?
ไว้ทำไม
Why leaving a gap for what?
สังสารวัฏมันมีตลอด
Samsara is always there.
ช่วยตลอด
Why not always make a conclusion through ending at all times?
จนมันไหม้มันก็ทั้งไหม้
Until disregard from the disregard itself is always there at all times. Until no is not no itself is always there at all times.
จนมันไม่ยึดแม้กระทั่งไม่ยึด
Until
เอง
non-attached to the non-attachment at all time.
ไม่ตลอดได้อย่างไรอะ
Why not
มันอยู่ตลอด
use the essence at all times when samsara is always here at all times?
รูปนามสังสารวัฏ
Form and formlessness of samsara of body and mind.
ที่จนะมันมีอยู่ตลอด
Samsara of senses and sense perceptions is always there.
ไม่สรุปตลอด
As a whole, why not always making a conclusion
เว้นเอาไว้ทำ
to help
มัน
it?
ไร
Why leaving a gap
เว้นเอาไว้มันยุ่งเหรอเว้น
to
เอาไว้
create
มัน
complications, to create obscure,
เว้นเอาไว้มันเลอะเลือนเหรอ
to create the absence of the essence?
จนมันไม่เกี่ยวแม้กระทั่งตัวไม่เกี่ยวเองกันตลอด
Until uninvolved within the uninvolved itself is always there at all times. Therefore, always share the essence through ending, helping one another through ending, ending as helping one another at all times. While leaving a gap to create obscurity here, to create agitation, unable to help through ending, that will create agitation within one's mind. Until disregard from the disregard itself is at all times.
ไม่ใช่อะไรอยู่
Mind or the non-attachment doesn't signify anything at all. It's not even itself.
ยึดแม้กระทั่งไม่ยึดเอง
That means non-attached to the non-attachment itself
ตลอด
at all times.
จะได้พอที่จะ
This will be sufficient to end as helping for all beings and for samsara, being sufficient to help ending for samsara, sufficient to help the beings to be liberated while leaving a gap.
ทำไมไม่ตลอดเล่า
Why not share the essence at all times? those who have difficulty to release from the mind must declare renunciation and revocation from all the desire and expectations to take in anything within the mind. This is the desire, delusion, and delusive attachment that overlays the body and the mind in the form of reserving manners. This is the delusive attachment that is transforming its attributes, transforming its conditions. The delusive attachment in the form of being reserved, composing or sinking. The delusive attachment in the form of being carried away within the dwelling within body and mind, within Dhamma, within all things, within sound, smell, taste, touches, and shapes. This is the attributes of the upathan, the delusive attachment. Therefore, declare renunciation and revocation of all the delusive attachment to grasp, to expect, and desire for anything. The delusive attachment and the grasping is the samudaya, is the suffering and the cause of suffering in itself. Grasping for the body, mind, grasping for mindfulness, concentration, contemplation, wisdom, and Dhamma. This is practicing for attachment, practicing for fixation. Grasping that which is not about grasping. How can one grasp the anatta? All Dhamma is anatta. All minds, forms are anatta. Why grasping anatta? Grasping that which is not about grasping. This is the practice for attachment. All the mindset to grasp, there is just the setup to practice for attainment. So declare renunciation and revocation from all removal from all the design and expectation, the body, mind, sound, smell, taste, touches, and shapes. The mindset to grasp within the body, mind, within the assumed Dhamma. The mindset to gain within looking, seeing, and knowing, within the opinions, which creates all the firm attachment within oneself, because this is the attributes of the upathan, delusive attachment. Disregard, even from the disregard itself continuously, automatically it will purify the mindset to grasp. This is the conclusion through Nirodha and Nibbana, through the non-attachment. Disregard from the disregard itself continuously. Mai, or the non-attachment, is not about anything, it's not even itself. No, it's not even know itself. Continue onwards as such, then it will happen automatically. No, it's not even know itself. Disregard even from the disregard itself. This is all about purification for the samudaya, for the upathan. Ending as helping through ending for samsara. Let's continue onwards at all times, because samsara is always here at all times. Why leaving a gap? For what? Until know is not know itself, is always here at all times. Until uninvolved, even within the uninvolved itself, is always here at all times, to be shared to samsara at all times. Then it will be sufficient to purify through the extinction ending and extinction as helping, ceasing as helping. No is not know itself at all times. Until disregard from the disregard itself at all times, then it may be sufficient to help samsara child. Don't leave a gap for what? Let's make a conclusion at all times. Don't leave a gap, just disregard from the disregard itself at all times. The gap is delusion. Until automatically the disregard is within itself, from itself, and involved within itself automatically. Give no significance to the disregard itself completely. No is not know itself right away. Don't be obsessed to reject anything until it turns into like a cockroach within samsara. No is not even know itself, so that one will not have to become anything. Don't be deludedly no to anything until it becomes rejection, like a cockroach attached to samsara. Don't be obsessed to take anything much into account. Well, to end to help samsara. Disregard, even from the disregard itself at all times. Don't leave a gap. For what? For the delusion to dominate oneself. Do not disregard. Disregard from itself at all times. Thinking and maintaining. What is it within the dwelling? By having anything to do with the mind is not sufficient to help end for samsara. Don't be carried away by the senses and sense perceptions, child. No is not know itself. Continue to use the essence to help samsara through ending as helping. Don't be carried away by the senses and sense perceptions. No is not know itself. Use the essence of cutting deluded knowing to help samsara continuously. Be aware of where you step on. Go ahead, proceed at all times with the essence. Always with the conclusion through Nirodha and Nibbana. Samsara is always here. So let's always make a conclusion to help it at all times. This means that the blessing is always here at all times. When is it going to give blessing? Huh? It has to be at all times. No is not know itself at all times. Don't be obsessed to reserve the manners on and on. That's not blossoming. Even the blossoming discards itself. There's no need to be concerned to reserve the senses. There is only just the delusive attachment in the senses, samudaya in the senses. Even emptiness is not itself, child. Always deludedly practicing the mind Disregard even from the disregard itself, non-attached even to the non-attachment itself. The disregard doesn't grasp itself. No grasping even to non-grasping itself at all times. Let's release out from the reserve. This is the samutaya in itself. There is no need to choose the internal or the external. Disregard from the disregard itself is not about options. The choosing itself is the samutaya. No is not no itself. The attempt to yes and no with anything has the samutaya in itself. To be obsessed to yes and no, liking or disliking, this is all about the samutaya. It's all about the causes of suffering and the suffering itself. The delusion to like or dislike, yes and no. So disregard from the disregard itself, simultaneously with the whole samsara.